You get to the night time, you're really stressed, and then all of a sudden, kids go on to bed, you're by yourself, and then you binge. You snack, you binge, you snack, you binge, you snack, you binge. Now, two reasons for this. First reason, didn't eat enough during the day, didn't have enough volume, didn't have enough protein. Hello and welcome to another vlog on YouTube and podcast on Spotify by the Fit Minds podcast. Coach Mariah Jean here. Spotify and Apple Podcasts, did I say that? Yes. Coach Mariah Jean here. I'm just going to fix my mic, make sure you can actually hear me. So, there we go. Right. First of all, before I get stuck into this podcast, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody's support with the podcast. To give you an idea, I opened my emails 2 weeks ago to something like 360 downloads for the week, which is just nuts. Like, obviously, yes, some of my content has gone viral. I've had 17 million views on stuff and it's just going crazy. But the podcast is always really slow moving. It's long form content. You know, you got to really be a podcast fan to listen to this stuff. But we used to get 30, maybe on a really good week, we get 60, 90 listens, and I'll be like, wow, this is awesome. I opened my emails and we got 363 downloads in a week, or 350, 360, something like that. And I was just blown away. Like, what? And then I thought, oh, maybe it's a fluke. And then the next week we got 280. And I thought, shit, we're actually doing, amazing here, getting this message out. Because the podcast is free. I don't make money from this. I'm not monetized. I mean, I might be one day if you guys listen enough. But it just made me really happy to think, okay, now we're getting proper education out to at least a few hundred women. Or maybe it might be the same woman listening to all of my podcast episodes. But this week's podcast episode is going to focus on the topic of how do you know whether you're eating too much or not enough, right? This is a very nuanced topic. Nuanced means, of those of you who don't know, I never used to know what the word nuanced meant. Nuanced. And it's funny because I've got a diverse vocabulary, if you haven't noticed already. But basically, it means that it depends, right? It depends on lots of things. And I think this is the issue with nutrition is that we face, right? Is this idea that everybody thinks that how much they should be eating is determined by how hungry they are, right? It's immediately, I'm not hungry, I shouldn't eat. I'm hungry, I should eat. Yeah, that's probably the biggest mistake I see people make. The other thing is eating too much. People have this idea of eating too much. They think that it looks like large portions. So they might look at their plate and they might go, oh, that's a lot of food. Oh, that's too much. I think this has to do with the fact that when we were younger, we were told that big portions were bad, right? It's oh no, you shouldn't be having that. You shouldn't be having this, And I think, that may be the case with some types of foods if you are trying to avoid weight gain. But it depends. If you are trying to gain weight and you're wondering, am I eating enough for growing muscle? Then, the answer is probably no, because if you're not gaining weight, then that's the answer, right? But it doesn't mean you need to eat more of the, clean and fruits and vegetables, right? But we get a lot of people who have fat loss goals, yeah? Now, here's the funny thing. We see an issue in society at the moment, and it's been like this for years, where processed and packaged foods have become readily available, more palatable, more convenient, easier, quicker, faster. It's all about how can I quickly get past this meal time and not involve any food preparation. And I get it, everybody's time poor. Mums are time poor, mums of multiple children are time poor, single mums of multiple children, even more time poor. And this is where it becomes a slippery slope, where reaching for processed foods constantly becomes a bit of a default. Oh, it's just snacks. I just snack all day. Or I don't eat. I don't have breakfast, and then I, barely eat all day. And here is the interesting thing. Something that's been so unique to me since I've become a coach for mums specifically, mostly mums, is that prior to that, I didn't really understand what mums were doing to get to a point where they were overweight. I thought, maybe they're just eating a whole bunch of food, right? And now that we've really dived into the micro issues, it's actually that they are not eating enough food, real food, during the day. That's it, right? They don't have breakfast. They skip breakfast, not because they're trying to lose weight from not having breakfast. They generally don't think about it. They're not very hungry. they don't really want to put the time and effort into it because their brain is too occupied thinking about their kids. You know, what am I doing for my kids? What breakfast are they having, right? I'm gonna keep talking while I make the snack. They're not geared nor programmed to think about, hold on, where do I come into this equation and how important is my breakfast, right? Because here's the thing, there's no ultimatum. It's not like, you know, you don't have breakfast and you die, right? So you guys are just not eating breakfast because you're like, well, you know, there's no consequences. And you know, you go, look, coffee will do, right? You're all just saying to yourselves, coffee will do, or that'll do, I'll have a slice of toast, or I'll have a bite of my kids' toast because at least it's not a whole slice of toast and I'm trying to cut carbs. And here's the thing, all right? Most of you are, yes, not eating enough food during the day, which helps to keep your blood sugar stable, breakfast, lunch, dinner, 2 snacks. And you might think, well, hold on, how do I lose weight eating all that food? I mean, the moral of the story is that when you're eating actual real food, fruits, vegetables, slow digesting carbohydrates like oats, wholemeal toast, wholemeal bread, rye, sourdough, you know, sweet potato, some of the really good stuff that makes you feel amazing, gives you lots of energy, lots of concentration, the stuff that your kids are probably eating, when you eat that, it's actually not super high in calories. Every food that you see on this earth has a number like associated to it, right? Or like allocated to it. So every single food, every packaged food, every food, even water, 0 calories. They all have a number associated with what it is, right? Typically with the raw weight of that food item. Most of the time, it's gonna be all raw weight of that food. Or if it's a processed food, it's gonna be what they've figured out, you know, goes into it and what it ends up at the end, right? But they all have numbers next to them, and that's called calories. If you don't know what calories are, you need to know what calories are. It's just how it is. They've existed forever. It's a maths and science thing. Now, with food, when you have real food, real meals, they contain, especially things like fruits, vegetables, they contain water and fiber and nutrients, and they contain, yes, some form of carbohydrates, right? But because of the water and the fiber, right, they actually don't have, like in that vegetable, that fruit, if you have a big bowl of potato, a big bowl of pumpkin, right, versus say a big bowl of chips, if you put them next to each other, the numbers in those bowls, right, I wish I had a physical demonstration here, but the numbers in those bowls, that chip bowl, okay, is worth hundreds of calories, right? If not, maybe even up to 1,000, depending on how big the bowl is. Because it contains not just the potato, but the oil added to the chips. And then it's dried, so it's shrunken, so it's smaller than it would be if it was in its whole food version, yeah? But whereas then, for example, if you have a bowl of pumpkin or potato or like the raw version of it, it's got the water in it still, it doesn't have any oil added. And oil contains calories as well. So as we start to consume more of these processed foods, depending on what is in them, will actually change the calorie amount, the number associated with it. And this is why, and if you already understand calories, don't stress about it. Like, okay, cool, I know that I'm not eating enough, I'm eating too much, etc., calorie-wise, because you know that, right? But there's also other parts to this, other than just understanding calories and volume, you know, high volume, low volume. High volume foods are what's called, they are low energy dense foods, meaning that for the grams that you hold in your hand, the weight of that food, that there is not a lot of energy per gram. Okay, so energy, calories, right? That's why the common misconception, potato is bad for you. No, it's not. Deep fried potato, chips, yes, because they've had the oil, it's been dried, it's been shrunk, so it's a lot more concentrated per the gram that you hold in your hand, yeah? So now we've understood that. There is very calorie concentrated foods that are very high in calories for how much you're holding in your hand versus calories that are, you know, lower, but there's larger volume. And the issue is most mums are not eating high volume meals. They're not eating a proper breakfast. They're not eating having a smoothie with protein powder and skim milk and all these things, all the goodness that you can add in there. If they are eating, they're not really thinking about what they're eating, and they can easily be over-consuming the numbers, the calories, right, in other areas of their day without even realizing. And this is where, for example, in the day, if you're not eating enough, blood sugar starts to get lower. So it gets lower and lower and lower. I tell people this in my calls all the time. By the afternoon, if you haven't eaten a proper wholesome meal, it's been snacks here and there, bites and licks here and there, you haven't taken the time to actually sit down, and honestly, it's a couple minutes, it's really not that bad, to finish a meal. And it's, you know, make double dinner. Like, it's really simple stuff, but we're just convincing ourselves not to do it, right? To go and do something else. But you get to the end of the day, your blood sugar is really low. Okay, you have dinner, and then you're like, why am I so hungry after dinner still? Because you are literally backlogging that energy, right? So your body is going, I've only had, 900 calories today, 600 calories today. You've got to give me something else, because you have a minimum calorie requirement just to breathe for the day. So if your blood sugar gets too low and you haven't eaten enough during the day to support your energy needs during the day, because when you're living, breathing, walking, everything like that, you still need to eat food to support your brain, your like basic movement, everything like that. Your brain literally uses the most energy out of any organ in your body. Crazy, right? So if you're having to think during the day, you're burning through food. It's crazy, but you are. You get to the nighttime, you're really stressed, and then all of a sudden, kids go to bed, you're by yourself, and then you binge. You snack, you binge, you snack, you binge, you snack, you binge. Now, 2 reasons for this. First reason, didn't eat enough during the day, didn't have enough volume, didn't have enough protein, didn't have enough fiber, didn't have enough real food. Slow digesting carbohydrates. I see so many women send me pictures of their meals. They're like, oh, here's what I had for breakfast, here's what I had for lunch. And I'm like, where are the carbs? And they're like, I just can't seem to lose weight. I'm like, yeah, because you're not eating any carbs during the day. And then you get to nighttime and all you crave is carbs because your body wanted them during the day. It needed blood sugar and you didn't give it to it. Carbohydrates, slow digesting carbs, actually allow your blood sugar to remain stable. We don't want low blood sugar, we don't want high blood sugar, but we want it to be stable. And we can only have it being stable if we actually give our body carbohydrates, which turns into glucose, which turns into energy for our brain and for our body to function, right? We cannot survive off no carbs. That's why carnivore doesn't work. That's why keto doesn't work. That's why all of these tactics of cutting out carbohydrates ends up being a disordered relationship with food and binging at night. It's just everyone ends up there, right? So there is a minimum amount of carbohydrates that you need. There is a minimum amount of protein that you need as well. Second most common issue, women eating not enough protein, okay? And they're hungry all day or they're really hungry at night. They didn't hit their protein target. Protein is very filling. So protein can actually help to keep you fuller for longer. You're probably not eating enough food during the day or in general, right? If you are not feeling full and satisfied after your meals, okay? If you're feeling low in energy, if you're feeling drained, probably not eating enough, yeah? And this is where I think a lot of people are like, well, just tell me what to eat then. That's what I do for a job. But we actually teach you why, what it means, and then you can understand the practical behind it and go, oh, right, like that's what's been going wrong. Because it's much easier to get you to adopt something and do it if you understand the why behind it. So, second reason, other than not eating enough during the day, enough whole foods, enough calories during the day in general. Second reason is that the calories you're giving yourself. So for example, you might go, well, this is all I'm eating today. You know, in general, across the day and at night, you may only be putting yourself on 1,300 calories, 1,400 calories, really low calories. And you might weigh 100 kilos, 90 kilos, 80 kilos, whatever, right? The issue is that women who weigh more, the more you weigh, the more calories you need to support your energy output. Think of it this way, okay? If you carried around, if you're a 60 kilo female and you carried around a 10 kilo backpack, right? So that made you 70 kilos weight in total. Do you think you would burn more energy if you were carrying the extra 10 kilos, right? Or do you think that you would burn more energy if you didn't have the backpack? Makes sense, right? So that fat you're carrying on your body, it is like a backpack. It's like a backpack of extra weight. You will burn more energy than someone who weighs less than you. You will always burn more energy than someone who weighs less than you if you're both doing similar activities for the day, yeah? Which also means when you're exercising, if you weigh more, you also burn more, okay? It's called your energy expenditure. So your metabolic rate, if you weigh 80, 90, 100, 120, 130 kilos, your metabolic rate is what we call it. Your calorie burn, so the amount of numbers you burn daily is higher, right? Which means when you go into a calorie deficit, when we pull back your energy to make sure you lose fat, so we stop you from eating as much calories, not food, calories, yeah, numbers. When we pull that back, we can't just go from what your maintenance would be, which might be 3,500 calories, so this is like numbers. We can't just go straight down to 1,300, 1,300. Oh, but no, I've got heaps of fat to lose. I should go that far. No, I should go that low. No, that's not correct. It's a percentage from your maintenance that we need to go from. Because if we go too far and we cut too many calories, right, your body will actually tell you this isn't enough. This is going to drive your hunger hormones through the roof. So not only is the under eating during the day the problem, but it is actually not allotting yourself enough calories for your calorie deficit or your goal at all, right? And I've seen this time and time again, especially to women who overexercise. I've actually seen women more often who are, overweight or 100 kilos, 110, 120 kilos, actually exercise more, right? Because they think the exercise is burning fat. Like, oh, my exercise is burning more fat, so I'll do 6 sessions, right? But all that's doing, it's driving your hunger hormones through the roof because you're under eating and not eating enough calories. You might be on 1,300 calories. And then every second or third day, maybe even every day, you're binging because your calories are too low, right? So you're either not purposefully, really knowingly under eating your protein and or carbs during the day and total calories and then binging at night, or you're purposefully under eating your calories, eating a low amount of calories because you think you have to, and then you're binging anyway. So that's how you know you're under eating. You're getting the symptoms, okay? You're getting the signs. It's not I don't have the self-control, right? You're not eating enough whole foods, slow digesting foods, foods that keep you fuller for longer. There are some that are better than others. And this is where it gets confusing for women because they're like, okay, shit, well then what do I eat? That is why you work with a coach. It's the same reason why you go to a hairdresser to get your hair cut. Yeah? It's the same reason why you go to get your car serviced somewhere. It's the same reason why you get the electrician to fucking fix the shorting circuit, right? You don't know, right? And we wouldn't expect you to know, but it's important that you get the help from the place that you need to, right? Now, the difference is between us and say other coaches is that we don't just fix the circuit, okay? I mean, for some people we just do, if that's what you want. We don't just service your car, okay? We don't just cut your hair. We actually slowly but surely teach you how to understand how to fix the circuit yourself, how to cut your own hair, how to service your car, yeah? Not saying we actually physically do those things, but a nutritionist and a good coach will actually, if you want to learn, will give you that skill set. And that's what our coaching is designed for, right? That's how you know you're under eating. You're getting all those symptoms, you're not strong at the gym, or you have no energy, you're low in energy, your digestion's terrible, like you're probably under eating, right? And you're probably overeating stuff that isn't ideal for you, not enough carbs, too many fats, not enough protein, not enough calories during the day, not enough whole foods during the day. And you all know it, like you're all very aware of it. We know this because I'm in calls with you and you're telling me. So if you know that you're eating too much, right? And that's literally on the other side of the scale. You know that you're eating too much if you're gaining weight. You're probably eating at maintenance if you're not gaining weight, but like you're eating too many calories if you're gaining weight. That's just how it is. You are eating too many calories if you're gaining weight. There is nothing else that's happening. There's no sort of magical fucking unicorn, hormonal thing going on. I tried not to swear this whole podcast and yet somehow I still did it. No apologies. There's nothing magical going on, okay? No, you don't have high cortisol. I mean, maybe if you're over exercising, but that's just literally your body saying, give me more fuel because I'm exercising so much 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a week, right? Where your body will drive your hunger hormones up because you're not eating enough food. Even if you're dieting, there is such a thing as calories that are too low, right? For your requirements, for your body weight, height, age, sex, etc., right? There is such a thing as calories being too low. And that is where we actually figure that out based on how many times you're working out. Sometimes we actually tell people to stop working out so much because it will actually help to control their appetite. Exercise can be an appetite suppressant, but if you exercise too much, it can do the absolute reverse and make your appetite go through the roof, especially if you're not eating enough calories. So there needs to be an understanding that, right, you are probably getting the balance wrong. Most people are getting the balance wrong. Why? Because everybody's calorie deficit will be slightly different to the next person's. So you're not going to be able to follow Susan's plan, your neighbor's plan. If you're 110 kilos and she's, 60, 70 kilos and only wants to lose a couple kilos and you want to lose 20 or 30, and you're taller than her and she's really short, you cannot follow Susan's plan. Maybe she does 15,000 steps a day because she's a nurse. You can't follow her plan. You need your own plan, which is matched to your step count, your body weight, your height. And then you won't end up thinking, oh, holy shit, how can Susan stick to 1,300 calories, but I can't? It's like, because Susan weighs less than you. Her calorie deficit is lower for a reason. She is not carrying around a 30 kilo backpack of fat, right? So if we then get rid of that 30 kilo backpack of fat, then your calorie deficit becomes, well, not Susan's calorie deficit, but slightly higher. So you got to understand, with body weight, calorie deficits slowly reduce. your amount of numbers that you need to eat to be losing fat slowly reduces. That's why it gets harder to lose weight the lighter that you weigh, right? So now you understand energy balance. Now you understand I'm probably not eating enough during the day. That's because I'm too concentrated on what everybody else is doing. But if you actually start eating more and attempting to eat something, it doesn't have to be complicated, making double dinner, rotating your dinner and lunch so you've got variety. And if you then go, okay, cool, I love all this information you give me, but Mariah, I don't know. I don't want to have to work out my food, my calories, my macros, and then plan my meals. Like, I get it. You don't have to think about it. I understand that. That's what we're for. That is what we're for. So if you are listening to this podcast and you're like, do you know what? I've been meaning to message Mariah. I've been meaning to say, look, can you take me on? We are absolutely, I'm not even gonna lie, flat out at the moment. We've had coaching application after coaching application. It goes nuts. So message me the word coaching, okay? If you are interested in doing coaching, all right? You don't have to do that. You could just be like, hey, Mariah, I listened to your podcast. I need you. Like, I get it now. Message me the word coaching or just message me in general and be like, let's do it. All right. We can chat before we sign you up. We don't have to just go like, let's go straight to coaching. I'm going to take you on a first date first. But make sure you consider the fact that, okay, maybe doing it by myself hasn't been working and maybe I actually need some more support. Anyway, I'm going to make my tuna on rice cakes and cucumber, and then I'm going to go and train because I eat frequently, not as frequently as I used to, but I eat bigger meals now because I don't have time as a mum to eat as much. So I eat probably 3 mains and 2 snacks a day myself. But you got to eat to have energy, to be able to exercise, okay? And you got to eat to prevent yourself from getting stupidly hungry later and eating stuff that you regret. All right, that's it from me. Have an amazing day, evening, whatever, wherever you are. And I'm looking forward to doing another podcast for you soon. Bye-bye.